Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome. Now, we all think we know the story of Moses and Pharaoh, right? But what if we looked at it in a new light? Not just as history or scripture, but as this timeless masterclass in how power really works and how, eventually, it breaks. So let's get into it.
At its heart, you've got this epic confrontation, but it's so much more than just a clash of personalities. We're talking about an entire ideology, a huge, polished, institutional empire coming face to face with a truth that it can't compute.
So let's really treat this as a case study. We're going to explore how a system that's deeply dug in defends itself. We're going to look at why it becomes so brittle and what the inevitable consequences are when it decides to deny a fundamental truth.
Okay, so our first section gets right to the heart of the matter. This is not just a battle of wills. This is a clash between a massive, highly organized bureaucratic system and a prophetic truth that threatens the very ground it stands on.
So what's really fascinating is how the story actually frames the challenge from Moses and Aaron. We tend to focus on the miracles, the big, spectacular signs, but the source text points to something way deeper, something much more fundamental about their mission.
They were sent with something the Quran calls Sultan Mubin, and that translates to clear authority. Now, this is a really crucial point. Their power wasn't just about what they could do. It was rooted in the legitimacy, the undeniable moral credentials of why they were there in the first place.
So you see, we kind of have to shift our thinking. This wasn't some kind of magic theater designed to shock and awe. This was a profound challenge based on truth that came with credentials. It was an assertion of a higher moral authority, and it was aimed squarely at the legitimacy of Pharaoh's entire rule.
Right, so how does a system like Pharaoh's react when it's faced with a challenge this fundamental? Well, its response tells us everything we need to know about how entrenched power protects itself.
The source makes it really clear that while Pharaoh is the face of the regime, the real engine of the opposition is his Mallah, his inner circle, his committee of elites. It turns out tyranny is a team sport. It needs a whole support system to keep it going.
And their reaction is described with this one word, istakbaru. It means they chose to be arrogant. This is so important. Their pride wasn't just some personal character flaw. No, it was a deliberate political strategy. It was a policy designed to reject the truth without ever having to actually deal with it.
And this quote just brilliantly lays out their entire argument. They don't debate the message. They don't challenge the evidence. They just attack the messengers based on their social status. Their response tells you everything about the foundation of their power.
What we're seeing here is just raw, supremacist logic. Plain and simple. They've wrapped their oppression up in the language of what they call common sense. Why should we listen to them? Their people work for us. It's a classic way to dismiss justice by just pointing to the way things already are.
So, when a system decides to make arrogance its official policy, and it flat out refuses to engage with a clear moral truth, what happens next? Well, the story shows us that the outcome isn't an accident. It's a direct and, frankly, inevitable consequence.
The language here is just so stark, so direct. There's no dramatic flair, no long-winded explanation. It's just a simple statement of cause and effect. They deny the truth, and because of that, they were destroyed. The link couldn't be more explicit.
So the chain of events is laid out perfectly for us. It starts when pride is no longer a personal failing, but it becomes state policy. That policy leads directly to denying the truth. And when you keep denying the truth, it inevitably leads to a total systemic collapse. It's practically a formula.
This insight from the source material just sums it all up perfectly. The spectacular ending that we all know, the parting of the sea, that wasn't the cause of the collapse. It was just the final symptom of a system that was already completely hollowed out by its own arrogance and denial.
But, and this is maybe the most vital part of the whole lesson, the story doesn't end with destruction. What's the ultimate point of this entire saga? What gets built in the ashes of that old, broken system?
You see, the goal was never just about tearing down a tyrant. It was about restoration. After Pharaoh's system falls, Moses is given the scripture, the book. Tyranny isn't replaced with a vacuum. It's replaced with law, with structure, with a moral compass for the community.
And this is a lesson for all time, isn't it? Simply removing an oppressive system isn't enough. If you don't have a new framework of guidance and justice to take its place, you don't really get freedom. You just get chaos with a new set of leaders.
All right, so let's just crystallize the key takeaways here. First, real challenges to power come with moral authority, not just a big show. Second,
Tyranny is a group project. It's propped up by an elite inner circle. Third, those elites will use arrogance as a tool to make a call for justice sound like a rebellion. And finally, systemic collapse isn't random. It is the predictable result of refusing to face the truth.
And this really brings us to the core thesis of it all. This story isn't about an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. It's about a clear truth meeting a system that had become so rigid, so arrogant, and so dependent on injustice that it was fundamentally brittle. It was always going to shatter.
And that, of course, leaves us with a final, really crucial question to reflect on. When we look at the systems that govern our own world, our institutions, our societies, what is it that gives them strength and resilience? And maybe more importantly, what are the hidden cracks, the arrogant policies, the denied truths that might just be making them brittle? Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration.